It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, what's going on?
I got to say, I sprained my right wrist about 8 years ago. It's never been the same. Joe Burrow might just be done. I don't know. I'm just kind of mocking the internet medical diagnosis community, which will I'm certainly tell us exactly when Joe Burrow will be back. But we know it's not this season. And oh man, how about the AFC North? Like 2 weeks ago, everybody wins. All four teams in playoff position.
Yep.
Not for long. Not for long.
And two of those teams, the two that are in Ohio, seasons were basically written off after losing their quarterbacks in Deshaun Watson and Joe Burrow over the last week. Seemingly, look at the timing of this, the next two opponents on the Steelers schedule as well, in the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals. What a brutal Thursday night football game that was. I mean, in general, I feel like there's just been so many devastating injuries. The AFC North is getting decimated. Like Steelers fans, I know that we're, because it's not the quarterback or anything like that, maybe not getting talked about in the same light, but both inside linebackers and Cole Holcomb and Quan Alexander done for the season. They've had to deal with multi-week injuries to Deontay Johnson, Cam Hayward, Pat Freiermuth, Minkah Fitzpatrick, who still isn't back yet. They haven't had, the cleanest bill of health either.
Two drives of defense with TJ, Minkah, and Cam. 2 drives. That's what they've had all year.
Right. So, I mean, it's not just, it's seemingly at least division-wide, if not league-wide, in the way that these rosters have just been devastated with these injuries. But Thursday Night Football last night specifically, Joe Burrow's the big one. We'll talk about that one more. Mark Andrews, though, as well, lost for the season for the Baltimore Ravens. Their number one pass catcher.
Second best tight end in the league, probably. It's huge loss for Baltimore. Cam Taylor-Britt went down for the Bengals, too. I haven't seen it. And OBJ was hurt for the Ravens. So, I mean, that's big starters, man, on both sides of the ball. Browns, even just beyond Deshaun Watson, this game against the Browns, they don't have either their starting tackles. They might not have their third tackle. They don't have Chubb. They're everybody's beat up. And I think it really brings into focus something that the Steelers players were talking about in the locker room today that I think it really stood out to me is that, this is the National Football League and style points don't matter. Like, if you were hung up on the way that your team is winning games, you're probably barking up the wrong tree. Like, it doesn't.
That's for the fans, right? I mean, the players don't
matter.
Talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't even think the fans should matter. Like, hey, wins are wins, man. They're precious. Collect them. Make a little fort out of them. What Brett Kiesel used to say, stack hotcakes. Like, whatever you want to do with the wins, like, great, but don't fret over how you got them, because there are no tomorrows guaranteed. Your entire future outlook can change in the blink of an eye. And the Steelers are 6-3 and have as good of feelings about their season right at this very second as just about anybody in the NFL.
You're telling me that the Steelers aren't trying to impress the Super Bowl playoff committee right now? That's not what's happening?
Yeah, it doesn't matter, man. You win them by 1 or you win them by 30. You get outgained. You get 400 yards. You don't. You win by 1 score or more than 1 score. I mean, is there some part of the analysis of the game that involves hey, what is really likely to continue and what is not? Yeah, sure, absolutely. But man, are the Steelers happy with throwing for 160 yards against the Packers? No, surely not. But man, you just do enough to win the game, and then you live to fight another day. And I think that's what this league is all about. I think, that's what the Steelers are emphasizing today in the locker room.
And that kind of ties in with, what Faustino, my man here, tweeted at me about Cam Hayward speaking up on the disrespect that they've gotten, because again, we've talked about this before, getting outgained doesn't matter. You could have a team drive 99 yards. If you stop them at the 1, keep them out of the end zone. That's really the only thing that matters is the scoreboard at the end of the game. But yeah, it's all kind of ties in together that a lot of these yards that they're giving up, like being outgained in 9 games, at least 3 of those to me, seemingly the Steelers, and this is, nitpicking because again, it's kind of meaningless, but they're giving up yards at the end of the game, just preventing a team from getting into the end zone. Like they could have been outgaining their opponent into the fourth quarter, deep into the fourth quarter, but they're just keeping the team out of an end zone and playing prevent defense.
They're 13th in EPA per play. So
Yep.
like, like that's saying like, now I don't know if you're not into like advanced football stats, but that's basically saying like their efficiency on offense minus their inefficiency on defense is they're an average team, even though they've been out above average team, even though they've been outgained in all these games. Like that's just a fluke of the statistics. That's not really a true measure of how good or bad this team has been.
Yeah. Alan, you watched Thursday Night Football obviously last night. I don't know how many teams have a viable backup quarterback option, but the drop off to Jake Browning looks very, 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 very significant for the Cincinnati Bengals.
And the same with Deshaun Watson and either PJ Walker or DTR.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there are not enough good at quarterbacks, period. There are a lot of NFL teams that don't have good starters, let alone good backups, but I do not understand the idea that you don't want to have a good backup quarterback. Are you going to win a Super Bowl with a backup? Probably not, but like tell that to the Philadelphia Eagles and Nick Foles, right? I mean, like, we've seen it done not that long ago. Okay. Yeah. But even though you're probably not going to win a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback, like if your quarterback has to miss, like let's say Burrow instead of out for the year, let's say the prognosis was like out 6 weeks. Okay. Like, do we trust Jake Browning to like steer the ship and keep the Bengals in the playoffs for Joe Burrow to get back? No. What? Well, how do you? I mean, the Steelers have a good backup quarterback in Mitch Trubisky. They have a good third string quarterback in Mason Rudolph. Any of those guys could go play for the Steelers and win them a football game this year. Also, each of the last 2 times the Steelers won the Super Bowl, they used 3 quarterbacks that season. Each of the last 2 times they won the Super Bowl. Like,
get Mason in there.
It is not like this, oh my God, it's never going to happen. I hear people say this all the time. If your third stringer has to play, season's already over. Like, no, it's not. Like, sometimes you just got to hold down the fort until things get back the way they were. Like, man, Steelers' future schedule looking like the XFL quarterback club. Like,
we should take a look at that.
There isn't even like a young quarterback that you're excited. I guess DTR was drafted this year and has some upside, but man, like Jake Browning is a non-entity of a quarterback. He's been in the league since 2019, and yesterday was his first completion. Like,
yeah,
AJ McCarron's on Cincinnati's practice squad. He was in the XFL this year. He might be a better option for them going forward. I think I probably would pick him, but like, I mean, there are so many. The Steelers get the Bengals twice without Joe Burrow. They're going to play the Browns once without Watson. They're going to get the Colts without Anthony Richardson. They do get Kyler Murray with the Cardinals, at least for now. But, man, like the rest of the schedule is shaping up about as good for the Steelers as it possibly could have.
DTR, Jake Browning, Kyler Murray, Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi, whichever one. Gardner
Maybe
Minshew.
Matt Castle by then. I don't know.
Gardner Minshew, Jake Browning, and then Geno Smith and Lamar Jackson is the way that the schedule looks right now.
Will they be an underdog again after this game, which somehow they still are? I can't figure that one out. Before Seattle?
No.
Right? Like they very well could be going into Seattle 12-3.
Alan, this team is going to be in. Well, I'm not okay. I don't want to, jinx anything or make any claims on here, but they very well could be in contention for the number 1 seed.
There was actually a way if the Bengals had beaten the Ravens and the Chiefs lost this week, they actually would have been the number 1 seed in the AFC this week. But they absolutely, like, the Ravens schedule isn't that difficult either. Really, it seems like the toughest thing for them to be right now would be to catch the Ravens. They've got to win that game in Baltimore, and then they've got to get the Ravens to lose somewhere else along the way where the Steelers don't. But man, like
Yeah, comparatively, the Ravens, it looks so the quarterbacks that they play, I think, are really the difference here because they have the Chargers, Rams, Jags, Niners, Dolphins, and Steelers, which is Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford, Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, Tua, and Kenny.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a much tougher schedule. Like that, much tougher, and also 2 more West Coast trips against the Chargers and the Niners. Steelers only have 1 more. And so, yeah, I mean, it's very possible that the Steelers are just like they're in a really good position right now. I would not bet money against the Steelers winning the AFC North right now. I would not.
And we said this weeks ago before these 2 injuries happened that the Steelers were making the playoffs. I mean, now, come on.
It will take a catastrophe down the stretch of this season for the Steelers to not make the playoffs at this point.
Right.
Like, I don't even know what kind of catastrophe, like a bus crash and like 7 guys get hurt. Like that's I'm telling you, like it's almost unthinkable at this point.
Yeah, you're going to need like 7 guys to end up with the same injury that Danny Smith got or something like that for this team to not make the playoffs.
Poor Danny, man.
Yeah. I just wanted to throw that. What a warrior. I just wanted to throw him in there again for a second straight episode, giving him a shout out on here.
Love Danny Smith.
We've talked about the injuries in the division. The Steelers are going to be without some of their starters for this game against the Browns. Keanu, Neal, Minkah, Monty Adams all rolled out. Pat Freiermuth, questionable after full practice the last couple days. Would think that he's got a good shot to go then based off that.
I would assume he's going to play unless there's some kind of last minute setback.
Yeah. I think the question is going to be how much, right? And this is like a multi-layer discussion.
Like he could play, like especially if you're like interested in the fantasy outlook here, like I wouldn't be super thrilled about putting Pat Freiermuth in my lineup. Like he could play half snaps, he could play not very much at all, but I think he's going to get activated to the 53-man roster, and I think he will dress for this week's game.
Yeah, which is like, it's a multi-layered discussion when I say how much is he going to play, both for health purposes, but also how much does he fit into the game plan. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And also, like, you figure the Steelers are not going to want to need to throw the ball any more than necessary in this game because it doesn't seem like the Browns offense is going to do much unless they gift it to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we are going to see, as stated earlier in the week by himself, Trenton Thompson starting at safety. Very curious as to what that actually looks like, because it started to think about it like, okay, he says he's going to start at safety. Like, do we actually see that play out more snaps than we see Patrick Peterson playing safety, though, in your mind?
Yes.
Like, is he okay? Because I saw some people having that discussion on X, like, okay, he's listed as he's going to be the starting safety, but we'll see Patrick. Their guess was like, we'll see Patrick Peterson play safety and more like Shannon Sullivan at slot, Levi outside, along with JPJ.
No, I don't think this matchup, like, I think KZ is too small to cover David Njoku. Like, I think Trenton Thompson is the answer for that problem. And therefore, he's going to play almost the entire game. I would be surprised if Thompson doesn't play most of this game because I think he's the Terrell Edmonds. Like, that's the job here. And there's nobody else that I see them really feeling very like Patrick Peterson isn't going to cover Njoku because if he happens to catch the ball, he could never tackle him. Like that's not going to happen. So I think it's got to be Thompson on Njoku. Maybe you put a linebacker and you could high-low him with KZ. If you have a linebacker like Walker underneath and KZ up top, you could do that. But I think if any time they're in man coverage, I think it's got to be Thompson on Njoku. And I would assume that you're not going to want to play a ton of man in this game because I don't think they should want to blitz DTR. Like, just leave him in the pocket and make him throw. I think you feel good about that. But I think that Thompson is the matchup for Njoku, and he will play a lot. I expect Michael Walker to play a lot in addition to the 2 run sort of supporting linebackers, Roberts and Robinson. And that's the answer. And if they need to go to dime, probably Elijah Riley.
Yeah, man, life comes at you fast. The NFL said it when we talked about Thompson the first time, but if he's going to play 100% of the snaps, it's going to be one of those games that we look back on similarly to last year against Tampa, with that secondary and be like, oh, this game in 2023, Trenton Thompson played 100% of their defensive snaps. Alan, we have a topic that we want to talk about that kind of goes away from the Steelers. Every once in a while, we have one of these episodes where you get to, get on your soapbox, go on a rant a little bit here. Do you want to do game predictions for this and then do that? Or do you want to do game predictions?
Yeah, let's talk about the game first.
Okay. All right. So let's get into some predictions here, both the score, anything that you think happens in this game, how you see the matchup going, all those types of things.
Yeah, I mean, I am thinking that, I was on a Browns show this morning and they asked me, like, what's the game plan for the Steelers to win? And I said, it's exactly the same as the game plan for the Browns to win. Like, they are the same game plan. It is run the ball, stop the run, and don't turn the ball over. Like, that is all that either of these teams are going to try to do. And I think the Steelers should feel like they're in a good place to do that based on the way they've been playing the last few weeks. But I don't think it's like, you look at, like, I don't think like DTR being out and the Browns O-line being banged up, like, this still doesn't feel like an easy game for the Steelers. Like, I'm not expecting like a double-digit victory or something like that. Like, I expect them to have to sweat this out and gut this out all the way down to the end, like they always do. And so I'm thinking, a low-scoring game. I don't expect a ton from either of these offenses against both really good defenses. Maybe the Browns can take advantage of a little bit of a leaky Steelers secondary to try to hang around. But I think the Steelers are just a better team right now. I think they're playing better football. And obviously having your starting quarterback is quite an advantage. So I'll guess, the under for this game is 32.5. And I'm still thinking under. Like, I think I'm going to pick the Steelers to win 13-9.
Oh, man. No way. We got a 13-9. I'm going to have to do it again. I'm going to have to clip it, tag Chris and Wes and Adam, and do the whole thing again this week.
Can you say it's a bad, like, it's a dumb score, but like,
yeah.
Touchdown and 2 field goals for the Steelers, 3 field goals for Cleveland. I don't know. They got good kickers.
Yeah. I'm right at the what'd you say? Wait, what's the
32
over under?
32.5.
Okay. Yeah, I'm right. So my prediction, and this has changed since Tyler and I did our predictions for this week very early because we recorded on Monday this past week, and I had Cleveland winning. I'm switching that pick. I'm going 19-13 Steelers, which is right at 32 points.
There you go.
So I also want to say this is a very bold prediction. 17 picks off 17. Trenton Thompson in his first start picks off DTR.
Not sure I can. I'm not tailing that prediction. If you want a bold prediction from me, I will say that Pat Freiermuth catches a touchdown pass in his return to the lineup.
Does he play 50% of the snaps? At least 50%.
Thereabouts.
Okay. Fair enough. Let us know what you guys think in the comments. As always, give us your score predictions and one bold prediction as well. Alan, the floor is yours to talk about this this thing that I think is, there's a little bit of we've talked about this before. There's always going to be some miscommunication, I feel like, in terms of how things relate to the media, as how do they relate to the fan base. We've talked about it with like the aggregator stuff, things that happen in the locker room. And we are once again here with this Charissa Thompson thing as a sideline reporter, basically coming out and just 100% saying that there are times where she makes things up in her sideline reporting.
Yeah.
Where
so
are we at
I don't
with
think,
Alan and
I don't think she is a sideline reporter anymore. She currently hosts the Amazon post-game show after Thursday Night Football. And I've seen some, there's some people that I've seen obviously come out very strongly against this. People like the president of Awesome, which is the Association for Women in Sports Media, Jeff Pearlman, a buddy of mine who's a senior writer at actually I think he's unattached at the moment, but has been with Sports Illustrated and The Athletic, and sort of like our one of the people that kind of speaks for us as an industry at times, I think. And this is completely unacceptable. And I've seen some fans say like, what's the big deal? Like, it's a nothing quote. I don't care about what that coach says in that moment anyway. They never say anything important anyway. It's usually dumb. It doesn't matter. And like the actual words spoken don't matter. But you cannot ever, as a journalist, put words in someone else's mouth And you certainly can't go around telling your audience that the things that you say are not true. Like that is, it doesn't matter how important the things that you're talking about are. Like there is a covenant of trust between a journalist and their audience that I am not going to steer you wrong, that I am telling you what I know to be true. And I'm not going to get everything right 100% of the time, but there are certain things where the expectation is 100%. And what somebody said is one of those things. If I tell you that somebody said something, they sure as heck have better said it. Like, I don't care what the other circumstances are. Like, that has to be 100%er. You cannot say that somebody said something that didn't say. Like, you just can't ever do it. You could say, talk to some people with the Titans, and you know they're really fired up about the way their defense played in that first half. Like, great. If you make it ambiguous, listen, I'm not advocating for making things up, but that is a far lesser crime at that point. You cannot say, I talked to Coach Mike Vrabel when you did not talk to Coach Mike Vrabel. Like, you cannot ever do that. And it is absolutely fireable offense, absolutely like disqualifying from ever holding any position of any journalistic merit ever again. And like, yeah, people want to clown on sideline reporters because those interviews are usually stupid. But think about this. Every time something really serious happens on a football field, the sideline reporter is right in the middle of it. You remember what happened with Damar Hamlin last year?
Yeah.
Like, and now I can't remember. That was that Pam Oliver that was the sideline reporter? I'm pretty sure it was. She was running down the tunnel to get, Damar Hamlin's mom get into the back of the ambulance and keeping us all up to date on this thing that suddenly the entire country was super tuned into. And you cannot have someone with that amount of responsibility in that role that we have no reason to trust. Like, I was floored when I saw people saying like, oh yeah, what's the big deal? Like, it is a huge deal. It cannot ever happen. And she put out a sort of apology today and kind of said like, maybe it never happened. I don't know. But to even say it is disgusting to me as a journalist, even if it didn't happen. And I don't know why you would. But yeah, it's just, it's something that you can't do that ever. And, we have if you are even a slightly informed media consumer, you understand that there are levels of certainty with things that we are saying, right? Like if I say someone said something or an organization said something, that is the highest level of certainty. If I say, hey, I heard this, or it looks like this, or, hey, this is the thing that makes sense to me. Like, you understand that I'm saying what I think or what I think might happen or what I expect to happen, but that is different than something that is an absolute fact. And you just can't go making those things up and ever do this job again. Like, you just can't. I was shocked to hear it. And then I was even more shocked to see some people sort of brush it aside as something that might not matter.
I mean, did you see anybody brush it aside though that is from the journalist background?
No.
Like it's more
no.
Right.
I feel like most of the people that are journalists that have spoken out about it have said, similar things to what I said and to what Jeff said and things like that. But it's really scary, to be honest, to see that the audience, or at least portions of the audience, doesn't care if what things I say are true or not. Like you care, trust me, whether you think you might or not, you do, because the whole thing is based on that.
Well, it's like a middleman, right? Like you have the consumer and you have the person that she is relaying this information to. If you're losing trust on both sides, what do you have?
Right. And like, if you are a coach now, why would you ever talk to, like, that's the other part of it. If you are a colleague, why would you ever talk to her again? Like, you don't know that what you're going to say is going to be faithfully relayed to the audience. Like and if you're the other thing is like, sideline reporter, it's not that big of a deal. Like, someone's paying someone a 6-figure salary to be a sideline reporter for a reason. Like, it's not like these TV companies just shoot money out of the money cannon because they think it's a good idea. Somebody cares about this access. Somebody cares about getting that information. It is literally the entire job of the sideline reporter to talk to people and then relay that information to the audience. If you're not talking to people, what the heck are you doing down there? Like, what?
Right.
Like, you're just not, in addition to being unethical, you're just failing at your job. Like, we sent you there to do one thing, and instead of you doing it, you faked it and made it up. Like, what are we doing here?
I mean, so the reason that I prefaced this whole conversation by saying that we had not a similar conversation necessarily, but something along the same lines, at least with the, locker room talk and the aggregator stuff and the fake quote stuff. And again, it's just like you're losing trust on both ends here, where it's like, okay, maybe that whatever it was that she's quoting, fake quoting, is harmless this time, but it doesn't have to be next time, and it's like, what level are we going to get to before it becomes an issue?
It already is an issue. I mean, we have
Right.
a massive trust issue as an industry. One, I mean, just journalists in general, but also two, like very specifically, female sports journalists come into this business with a portion of the audience assuming that they only got that job because the way they look or who they slept with or that they're not qualified. Like, that is a stereotype that women in sports media have been fighting for years, and this is doing nothing for that. Let me tell you that, because there are a lot of really hardworking female reporters in sports, and I'm telling you, like, it is so detrimental to the progress we've made in that area to have someone like this say things like this. And I'll say the last part of this is, like, I think that the television networks are fully complicit in this process, because for years now, they have treated sideline reporters as an unserious job. They have turned the hiring process for those jobs into a beauty pageant instead of a contest to see who is the best journalist. And is anyone really that surprised that someone hired under those circumstances would not take the job seriously? Like, it sure seems like it wasn't taken seriously from the top either. So, I mean, I think there's industry problems here too. I don't think that this is a one person issue, but man, like, it's brutal.
So here's where my mind goes on this, and unfortunately, where my mind goes on this is, how many other people are we talking about that do the same thing?
I don't know.
And she was just the one that said it out loud.
That's the impossible thing. Like, I don't know. Let me say this: no one else is saying it out loud, okay? Because they would be fired. I can't believe that she hasn't been fired personally. And I understand that she is not in a reporting role right now. She is a host. All she does is, read words on the teleprompter and throw things from one and one commentator to another. But, like, still, man, I don't know how you do that. I just I don't, it opens a question as to what is real and what isn't, and it's disgusting. And I can tell you that there are a lot of very hardworking sideline reporters out there that are not making stuff up as they go along. I thought it was just delicious that I'm not rooting for any injury on anyone, that last night's game gave Kaylee Hartung, who I think works very hard at her job, about 100 different things to report on from the sideline during Thursday Night Football, while Charissa Thompson sits there 50 yards away in the studio. I thought that was pretty solid from the football gods, so thank you for that. But, like, man, it's an important role. And in certain instances, it becomes an extremely important role. And it doesn't matter what role you have. If you're blessed to have one of these jobs where you get paid to talk about a game that other people play for a living, you should do it with, like, some semblance of honesty and ethics, or just don't. Like, just pick something else. If you don't care, like, these jobs are too hard. They're too hard to get. If you don't care about being honest about what we're doing here, like, let somebody else in that does, because you're hurting you're hurting everybody else.
Right. Well, I don't know if you have anything else, but I appreciate the conversation once again. Giving me a different perspective than I think. Don't get me wrong. I thought it was egregious even when it came out. I wasn't one of those people that you're talking about that didn't think it was a big deal, but providing more context to the conversation than I had coming into it. Is there anything else on your mind before we get out of here?
No, I mean, I think we got it. Got most of it. We got trip to Cleveland ahead. Excited about that. Love a short road trip. I do.
Mm-hmm.
And
is there like a specific, so when you go, you've obviously covered the Steelers in Cleveland in the past. Is there like a certain place that you always go to, like food wise, or like what do you normally?
no, in fact, like it's because it's so close that I spend like no time in Cleveland. I just show
Okay.
up, go to the game, and then leave. The only time I've ever stayed is when it's been a night game, and even then I've stayed like in Akron or something like get a little bit of the way home. I actually have I have a fishing cabin on Pymatuming Lake, which is like about an hour from Cleveland. So I'm going to spend Saturday night there, Nick and Ed, and have a couple pops maybe, and then we'll drive on over to Cleveland in the morning. It's an easy game to cover. I do love a good short road trip.
Yep, sounds like a good time. All right, Alan, tell the people where they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH on X, at PGH Steelers Now is the site's account, SteelersNow.com. That's where the words live. Read them so I can get paid. More great stuff from Derek about the Steelers running game today. If you are a subscriber to SN Plus, if you're not, use promo code Allen10, get 10% off. And love to have you guys over there and appreciate everyone. Appreciate the audience. That was the comment that we got when we were wondering viewers versus listeners. And I don't know, that was just too simple for us, I guess. We missed that one. Audience. Appreciate the audience.
I started
Here,
typing audience in the descriptions and stuff.
There you go.
Yeah, still trying to figure out a way to work ballage into that as well for the audience in general. We'll do something. But I am Zachary Smith, PGH. Alan and I will be back after the weekend to talk about this game. Fingers crossed. No more injuries to talk about, and that's on any side. You never want to see that happen, whether it's for Steelers, for any of the other teams. There's been far too many. We hope that does not continue to happen. So for Alan Saunders and myself, thank you for jumping in, taking another ride on Steelers Afternoon Drive.